it. This is called the Moustache. Moustache. Do you get it? Mustache. Should we see what it's all about? Okay. This is by Margie Palatini and illustrated by Henry Cole. Oh my, look at all this. There's scissors and a comb and a brush. To my dear with the 5 o'clock shadow, MP, and to Dan, Caroline, and Jim with love. They're dedicating the book to their friends. Oh my, look at this big guy here. He has mustache everywhere. Moose had a problem, a horrible, hairy, prickly problem. It grew right below his nostrils and just above his upper lip. A moustache. You see? What do we have here? Now, not a few spare hairs or shy little stubble, no mere weak wandering whiskers on the upper lip of this moose. No sirree. Moose had a big, bushy, bristly, mighty moustache. But a moustache that was a burly, surly, mangy mess. And it itched a lot. Sure, he plucked and he tweezed. He even clipped and snipped and teased. But his combs were still cowards, and his brushes rebelled. His scissors simply surrendered. Do you see the scissors have a white flag? These books are so funny. I just love children's books. Moose was in a frizzy tizzy. The moustache was completely crimping his style. He was a great hoofer, but he could barely bop a hip-hop with a moustache going flip-flop. He's got his headphones on. He's trying to dance. He was a wonderful chef, but he simply could not flambe his souffle with all of those whiskers in his way. And he was a daring skier, but how could he downhill race with the mighty moustache blowing in his face? Moose had to do something, and soon. But what? There's skiing. Oh, that mustache. After days and days of much serious thought, Moose got an idea. He crossed some hairs here, he crossed some hair there, and he tied his moustache around his neck. A moose scarf seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect. A moose scarf around his neck. But then his moustache got knotted and mangled and horribly tangled, and those hundreds of hairs still prickled and tickled. Worse, Moose could barely take a breath with all that moustache wrapped around his neck. So Moose untied, unwrapped, unknotted, and gulped some fresh air. You see that? I'm having a hard time getting the pages here. Oh, here he is. He's on a lawn chair. He got another idea. He parted some hair this way, he parted some hair that way, and he heaped all that moustache on top of his head. Moustachioed antlers seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple. It was so easy. It was so perfectly perfect. Until a squadron of squirrels and one very noisy gopher moved right into the Moose Motel. They huddled and hoarded, furrowed in and burrowed out. Needless to say, it became quite crowded up there on Moose's head, and heavy and messy. Do you see all of the animals up on top of his head, living in his mustachioed antlers? And very, very noisy. The squirrely chitting and chatting squeals and squawks woke Moose every morning before the crack of dawn, and that gopher was giving the moose one hairy headache. Moose needed his sleep. He needed his rest. He needed his privacy. Mustachioed antlers? Nuts, said Moose. So he unparted and unpiled, untwisted and untwined, and said, adios to the hairy horns. This is him getting out of the shower. And can you see the gopher who has a snorkel mask on for the shower? I thought that was a pretty funny picture. But now what? What? The miserable moose took hold of a hunk of hair and he wrestled it. He roped it. He tethered and tied and tamed. Aha! A moose tail. Now that was so simple. That was so easy. That was not so perfectly perfect. Instead of a ponytail, he was making a moose tail. Look at, he got it wrapped all the way around his nose. Can you see? Talk about a dizzy do. Moose didn't know if he was coming or going. Backward, forward, this way, that. He didn't know which end was which. Moose had to bail on the tail. He had to bail on the tail. He is all messed up. Okay. Let's see if we'll find out if this video worked out okay, because I feel like I'm moving the book a lot. Then call it fate, call it destiny. It was probably dumb luck, but one day Moose tripped on his moustache and just had no time to duck. Oof. Pardon me, they both said as they bumped. Then they blinked, then they stared, then their hearts went thump, thump. Look what he did, is he bumped right into somebody else. It's another moose. And what does he have in common with that other moose? She was a moose with a bouffant so bodacious, outrageous. Well, it was just plain old big. Hair after hair piled higher than high, a skyscraping dew of glorious curls. A tower of swirling twists and turns. She was simply splendid, stupendous, absolutely superb. She's got style, too. Do you like her jewelry? I like jewelry. Of course, Moose had to ask how she did what she did to get such a do. Miss Moose winked and then whispered, just a little glue. Glue in your hair? So he fearlessly plunged a hoof into a fat pot of the white gooey goop, and carefully, oh so carefully, they glopped and they plopped, they pasted and they pressed, they coaxed and curled every truly unruly, wayward whisker. Do you see what they're doing with all that glue? That is crazy. Around and around they tweaked and twirled those horrible hairs until Moose's once mangy mess was now a wondrous winding wave of marvelous moustache. Moose gazed in the mirror and smiled a broad moosey smile. He was so happy, so glad, just giddy with glee. He looked dashing and handsome. Moose gushed, is that really me? Should we see what he looks like? They wound it up in twirly twirls. You can look at the different pictures. With not a care for one hair, the moose pair boogied and bopped. They're dancing. They skied downhill, even uphill, and their cooking was hot, hot, hot. So of course it wasn't long after that Moose and his moustache and his beautiful bride fox-trotted and tangled and waltzed down the aisle. Good hair days, bad hair days, they vowed to love and to cherish, and with hearts heaped with love and with pots filled with goop, they both sighed, I do, glue, and promised never to part. There's their wedding picture. I like it. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect, and it stuck. And I don't know if you can see those pictures, but there's baby moose and like a teenager moose. Those are their family pictures from the future. So that was The Moustache by Margie Palatini. And I think that was a pretty good book. So I'm going to pick another one, and I'll fire this video up again, and we'll do another one today. It's rainy and stormy outside,